your biggest thing, your biggest point that everyone here is for is that you're a potential white supremacist. So,
what evidence do you have that I'm a racist?
I was just literally watching a video of you talking about whiteness as a whole, talking about whiteness as a concept, okay? And you were trying to explain how white privilege doesn't exist.
Correct, it doesn't.
You are a white man. How do you know?
Because I have eyes.
Ever since Charlie Kirk's murder, the left has been trying to do two things. First is to portray Charlie Kirk's actual assassin as anything other than the left-wing nutjob he actually was, and second is to portray Charlie Kirk himself as an extreme right-winger who deserves what he got. And this is what we're going to see being discussed over here with Jemele Hill using some very inflammatory language. So let's go ahead and jump into this.
One of the responsibilities that come with having a really big pedestal and having a really big platform is that you have to be very cognizant about what your words mean, how they matter, and how they influence. And I think Charlie Kirk was very aware of how his words mattered, what they meant, and how they influenced. And he was fine with how they did. So in response, we should be fine with being able to repeat those same words when we're thinking about the totality of his legacy. Because there were problematic things that he did and said. What he said about Black people, what he said about women, what he said about those in the queer community. He said a lot of very problematic, disgusting, and despicable things about all of those communities. And the reason he was labeled a white supremacist is because he believed in the superiority of white people, which is why he said that he would be concerned if he saw a Black pilot, which is why he said that he questioned the brain processing of brilliant minds such as Joy Ann Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson, because he ultimately believed in the superiority of white people. So I don't think I'm being insensitive by bringing that up. And the only reason I feel like I even need to bring that up is because of the counter narrative that is establishing itself. And that's the problem with history and the problem with receipts is that you can't erase the receipts. You can't, I learned this a long time ago, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before, is that people don't remember what you do, although a lot of times they do, but more importantly, they remember how you made them feel. And Charlie Kirk, with his words and with his influence, he made a lot of people who were not straight white Christian men feel less than human, feel less than qualified, feel a lot of less thans. That's how he made them feel, and that was his entire purpose. So we have room in our big old brains for multiple thoughts, for being upset and angry about what happened to Charlie Kirk, because it says a lot about our political discourse in this moment, but also being reflective enough to surface what also made him somebody whose influence was dangerous in a lot of respect and contributed to the political atmosphere in which we're living now. And before before I sort of move on to a few other things that were on my mind as I thought about this entire tragic incident. I'm tired of white supremacist beliefs being considered a difference of opinion. I'm really sick of that. You know what's a difference of opinion? Is if you like DC and I like Marvel. That's a difference of opinion. If you say Drake is the greatest rapper of all time and I think it's Jay-Z, that's a difference of opinion. What's not considered a difference of opinion? If you think Black people are inherently inferior to white people, and I think the opposite, that is not a difference of opinion. That is you being a racist. And we have, unfortunately, put matters of humanity in the bucket of politics where it does not belong. See, it's not political to say that Black people are unqualified and inherently criminal. That is not a political belief. That is a white supremacist belief. Because you're ascribing a pathology to a people to a construct of race, which is made up, by the way, and made up for the entire and sole purpose of being able to establish who's on top and who's on bottom. But that's a history lesson for another day. But if you don't believe that I am as human as you, that I deserve respect and dignity just because I'm here, that's not a difference of opinion, and we ain't got shit else to talk about.
So that, of course, is Jemele Hill, and you may recognize her from ESPN, but recently, of course, she's been a pundit on CNN and MSNBC, and right now she is very upset that Charlie Kirk's past racist remarks are not being remembered properly, because clearly this man is a white supremacist because he makes black people feel less than, right? Feel like they're dumb. And what she's going to do to prove all of this, of course, is not going to pull up video receipts, not going to pull up evidence or clips of him actually saying these things. Instead, she's going to twist his words, and I'll show you an example of that in a little bit. But this, of course, is something the left always does. Something's passing through the grapevine, and clearly it must be true. So she's going to go ahead and parrot those beliefs without a shred of evidence, okay? Because what's one of the things she's saying? Oh, Charlie Kirk doesn't believe in the brain power of Ketanji Brown and Joy Reid. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about that first. Ketanji Brown can't define what a woman is, and yet now she sits on the Supreme Court. So guess what? I'm going to discount her brain power as well, but not because she's black, but because she's a raging leftist. And Joy Reid herself, by the way, admitted to being a DEI recipient. She said she never would have gotten admitted into Harvard based on her scores alone, right? It was because she was a black woman, all right? But that's not why we think she's dumb. We just heard her talk day after day, year after year on her show that ended up being canceled, where all she spewed was basically racial politics. The exact same things that Jemele Hill is saying right now. But everything that Charlie Kirk is saying is problematic and disgusting, and of course has led to the current political climate that caused Charlie Kirk's assassination. Okay, but of course, this is all being passed off as a difference of opinion from Charlie Kirk. All right, but of course, we have Jemele Hill over here saying that no, this is not a difference of opinion. This is out and out racism. And the very first example she gives is actually Charlie Kirk's words about black pilots. All right. So let's go ahead and check out what that clip actually says and see if it's actually Charlie Kirk being racist or him just pointing out the clear problems with DEI hiring practices.
All right. So I'm going to quote you real quick. You said, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Are you going to do that?
Yeah, I mean that is correct, yeah.
That's correct? Okay, so can we both agree?
What was the context of what I said, though?
What was the context? I don't even want to get into DEI because your opinion on DEI, it doesn't really help it in this case. So if the context between what you brought up was that you believe that
because they were being hired because they were black.
Okay, so can we both agree that every single pilot, whether black, white, whoever, has to go through FAA certification?
No, actually,
we can't.
New lawsuit shows that black pilots and female pilots have the standards being relaxed.
No,
for them.
sir. Can we agree at the time of February 29th or 2023 when you said it at the time? No?
No, actually, I said it. That's why you don't know the context. Is that new lawsuits were showing that they were relaxing the standards for air traffic control and pilots in order to meet the standards.
The context of that was diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does that have to do with hiring?
Everything. DEI definitionally is that we will hire more of a race versus a different race. So, for example, United Airlines said that they want 50% of their new pilots to either be women or black. Okay. Currently, just so you understand, it's like 8%. So they want to go from 8% to 50%. Okay. And every time DEI is implemented, every single time, the lowering of standards occurs. Every single time.
So Charlie Kirk, of course, is addressing here DEI hiring practices, something we've talked about on this channel several times. And actually, Harvard studies show that DEI and affirmative action actually hurts the viewpoints of minorities in the workforce, because then people see that, maybe that person wasn't hired based on qualifications, so obviously they're just a DEI hire as they've come to be known. And it actually reduces confidence in their ability to perform the task they've been hired to do. Okay. However, when you actually have people involved in the hiring process who actually are qualified, that actually increases people's capacity to understand that, oh, those people actually are qualified. Okay. So that's exactly what Charlie Kirk is talking about. He's not saying, oh, no, there's a black pilot. I really hate that. What he's saying is, I hope that person is not a DEI hire, because as is shown in these lawsuits popping up, that many people were actually being hired and passed through the system without having the previous scores that were necessary, right? That's what DEI actually does. But to people like Jemele Hill, if you talk about this, then clearly that makes you a white supremacist. Okay, because that's your accusation against Charlie Kirk. Let's not pretend that he was saying things that weren't inflammatory. All right, he said things that would make the left upset, but he didn't say anything that would make normal people cringe. All he's been saying is things that are traditionally understood to be true. And if you want to prove to people that traditionally understand things like this, they're not true, you'd better have some really solid evidence. And guess what? DEI did not have any of that. And just because we do have this difference of opinion doesn't make us awful people. It makes us able to notice the actual world around us and call things as they really are. And some of us might even say that's called the truth.